Okay, just making sure you can hear me and see me okay. And if you can't, hey Joe, let me know that you can hear me and you can see me. You can hear my voice, hear my guitar. Hopefully all the settings are pretty good here. Loud and clear. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that, bud. So hello and welcome to the 5th installment of our Chords. We'll wait for a few people to show up here and we'll get started. But today we're going to be talking about is power chord creativity. And of course, you can check out the course that I've got available for power chord creativity over at guitar-zoom.com. Just head over there. There's a membership site that you can click on, free trial, all that kind of stuff. You can check everything out. Hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Ryan is here. Dayton is here. Brandon is here. Dave, awesome. Glad you're here. Michael is here. Let's see. Kevin. Volker is here from Germany. How you doing, bud? Arno is here. Felix is here. Rasta Kaz is here. Mike. Great. This is great. Marty from Canada is here. Shanna, Rusty Little. Good. Okay, well, we got all kinds of people on here today. This is great. So let's go ahead and get started. Today, well, first let's kind of just look at what we've done up to this point. Now, this is our fifth live session. The first one we went through how to switch chords and make that cleaner and tighter, that sort of thing, how to practice your chords. And then in the second one, I believe we did strumming. And we talked about organic strumming and trying to make your strum sound more natural and not just like strumming patterns, things like that. And then we started looking at how to shift chords back and forth in the next installment that we did. And we looked at power chords and trying to do some different ways of moving power chords so they're not so noisy and stuff like that. And the last time, what did we do? Chord creativity. Open chord creativity is what we did last time. And hey, who do we have? Aaron, Sterling, Harry, Jill, Tim, Melvin, James, Benoit, Daniel. Everybody is here. This is awesome. Thank you so much for everybody being here. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to step right into power chord creativity. Now, for me, once I learned how to play power chords and I got them to sound fairly tight, which is what we talked about in a couple of live sessions ago. And again, if you want to check these out, you can always head over to YouTube, either my Steve Stine channel or the Guitar Zoom channel. There will be a playlist there that you can check out all of these different live workshops that I've been doing, okay? So, and, you know, if you haven't subscribed or anything, please do me that. It helps me out enormously if you do those sorts of things, share them, that sort of thing. But anyway, so when it comes to power chords, the most important thing was being able to play them tight, making sure that your guitar is really in tune. And being able to tighten everything up when you play, whether it's the movements like we talked about last time, whether you're sliding, whether you're picking, or you're using an intentional kind of slide. Michael, yes, power chord creativity is something new. It's something I just created last month, I think, and guitar volume control is up. Thank you, Andrew. He likes the shirt. I appreciate that. It's my boomstick, right? So anyway, so keeping those chords tight, that's the most important thing. Right? So now what we want to do is we want to think about, okay, so once we've got that kind of accomplished, the next thing to do is to start trying to figure out how to get more creative with these chords. So what I want to do is I want to show you a few things to think about, and then again, all of this stuff and a whole lot more will be covered in that power chord creativity course that you can check out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a power chord. Now, generally what we do when we play a power chord is we use either 2 strings or 3 strings, right? So when you play a G power chord on the 6th string, you're either using 2 fingers, right, on the 6th and the 5th strings, or you're using 3 fingers with your pinky on the 4th string as well. And either way is perfectly fine. I interchange these, like I don't ever think, oh, well, I should just use 2 fingers or use 3 fingers or something like that when I'm playing power chords. I just play whatever's comfortable. And it very much depends on where I'm coming from or where I'm going to, how fast the song is. All those kinds of things would really make a bigger difference on whether or not I would use a 2-finger power chord versus a 3-finger. But one thing that I do use that may, again, and none of this stuff you have to do. I'm just giving you some opportunities of things to think about. But oftentimes when I play power chords, I'll tend to play them with 2 fingers, and I'll use my first and my pinky instead of my first and my third, okay? Now, the reason I'll do that is because oftentimes, I'll do things where I'll switch the bass note and I'll move it down, okay? So I want you to see this. This is going to be our first little chord creativity. So if I went to the 5th string, 7th fret, the E chord, and let's say I wanted to drop that bass note down, drop it down again, drop it down again. You see, I get some really cool sounds by expanding that. We're going to touch on these as we keep going in some different ways of thinking about this. But notice how as I play, right? So if I use my pinky, I can get larger stretches with my fingers as opposed to using my third finger. And because I'm aware of that, when I play songs, you know, whatever it might be, I might be going. If you've ever heard that before, it's natural for me to use my pinky to be expecting that root note shift downward. That sort of thing. Now, you don't have to do that, because then there are times when, and I showed you this before in a couple of workshops ago, but if I was switching very quickly from the 6th string to the 5th string in more of a, maybe a metal tune or something like that, I might play this with all 3 fingers, and then when I shift downward to the 5th string, all I do is drop my first finger down 1 string and take the ring finger off, and the pinky stays there. So I use that pinky as a pivot point to shift. Okay, so that'd be a situation where I would want to use all 3 fingers so I can shift down, and then when I move to the 5th string, of course, I'm only using 2 fingers at that point, okay? But listen, I just saw somebody say, Rusty says, I have a difficult time not using 3 fingers even though some songs call for it. And it's okay, Rusty. Again, my world doesn't, and I'm being completely honest with you, I don't live in a world where my playing is dictated by what tablature says or what a video says, or even, heck, even watching the actual artist play. Like, I've never lived my life like that. Like, if somebody's playing if I'm learning a Judas Priest tune and, you know, KK is playing a 3-finger power chord, I don't think to myself, well, I should play a 3-finger power chord. It doesn't even register in my brain. I just play. And I just play what feels comfortable, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is that when I play, I'm executing whatever it is I'm doing in a way that sounds authentic to me and certainly to a listener. So I don't ever think along those parameters, just like guitar tone for me. Guitar tone, I've never been one of those people that tries to dial in a guitar tone that sounds like this song or sounds like this song. And I'm not saying that that's bad at all. I'm just telling you, all I do is I know the tones that I like, and those tones inspire me and motivate me to play and hopefully play better. And that's what I do. So I don't sit and think about exactly trying to dial in this delay for this song or whatever. Unless, of course, it's a song like maybe a U2 song that requires a certain timing of a delay or something like that. That's a little bit different. But I don't think about music that way. So yeah, that was a 38 special riff. But yeah, so anyway, when I'm playing, when I think about 2-finger or 3-finger power chords, I'm not thinking about them in terms of did the original artist play it that way or the lesson that I saw said to play it that way. I'm just playing it the way that it feels most comfortable for me. So that's how I approach playing my power chords, okay? And you'll see, if you watch any of my videos, many times you'll see me shift the way I'm playing certain chords, not because I'm really conscious of it, it's just whatever feels comfortable to me, right? So if I'm playing, you'll see on the 5th string, oftentimes I'll go to my first and my pinky, because who knows, I might wind up going up to the 6th string, and then I'll do that little thing I just showed you where I'll pivot with the pinky retaining its space, and then the 3rd finger will drop down. But if I'm planning on doing something where, you know, I'm doing this dissension like I showed you, then maybe I'm using my pinky instead. So you know, maybe the first playthrough I'd play it a certain way, and then after I've practiced it a couple of times, I start figuring out which way is going to feel best for me to get from point A to point B, or prepare for section C that's coming up, right? Whatever it might be, I have to think about those things, and that's what I want you to think about. Okay, so with that in mind, that kind of sets up what we're doing here for the rest of this conversation. And remember, if you get a chance, head over to guitar-zoom.com, check out power chord creativity, and see if it's something that you're interested in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to strip this chord down, okay? So instead of playing it as a 2-finger or a 3-finger chord, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the root note. We're going to get rid of that low note. So instead of, for instance, playing the G power chord like this, I'm going to take that 6th string out of there entirely and just use the 5th string and the 4th string of that. Now, because I'm only using those, I wouldn't need to use these 2 fingers, right? I could use 1st finger, or maybe just the 3rd finger over those, or something like that. I could do whatever I want. And of course, this sets us up for, again, wrong guitar tone, but you get the idea. Right? For that kind of thing, where if I was playing a song like that, I don't want necessarily, unless I want it to be really meaty and punchy, then I'm going to want all of those notes in there. But if I'm trying to play it a bit thin, like the song is, a bit thin in tone, I might drop the bass note off of all of those chords. So what I'm really playing there is G, B flat, and C, but I'm not using the thickest string on any of those 6th string or 5th string power chords. And then I'm also, you know, I'm doing a hybrid pick on it. That's how I play it. But so I'm picking them separately as opposed to strumming, which again gives it a really powerful sound, which is awesome. But I'm just using, I'm picking with the pick and then picking with my middle finger. You see? So there's lots of different ways you can approach that. So let's look at a few other examples of eliminating that thick string. Okay, let's say I was playing something where I want that E string in there, and I don't want these big power chords, so I do something like this, and you might recognize this. Right? So that whole riff that I'm doing right there is all based off the playing 6-string power chords, but not playing the 6th string. I'm leaving the 6th string off. So they're not as meaty as they would be with that 6th string in there. They're very tight. And then you follow that with that 6th string, and they're doing the palm muting. Now, you might use different fingers than I'm using or whatever, but you get that, right? So it sounds super cool. Or if I did something like this, let's say I went to the 5th string, and I'm going to play a riff on the 5th string, but I'm going to drop the 5th string from that power chord. So instead of playing like a C and a D like this, I might just play, right, just the 4th and 3rd strings of that 5th string power chord and get like, and again, it tightens it up. It's thinner than playing the full power chord just using those couple of strings. Now, the nice thing about like that riff in particular, yes, that was Accept. It sure was. Love that song. Okay, so this song now, what I like about this is sometimes what I like to do is I add a vibrato. And when I'm adding that vibrato, you'll notice when I went from the 5, I used this 1st finger, but when I went to the 7th fret, I used my 3rd and my pinky because I can add for me a comfortable vibrato by using my 3rd and 4th fingers. And then you'll see I'm kind of deadening out everything with my 1st finger. Okay? Now, people might say, well, can't you use a vibrato with just your 3rd finger? Sure, whatever works for you. That's why I'm saying it doesn't matter to me how X, Y, or Z plays their riff, right? This is an Iron Maiden riff that I'm playing here. And whatever's comfortable for you, but I love being able to add a nice wide vibrato to that. And I've got a lot of confidence and control if I use my 3rd and my pinky as opposed to just using my 3rd finger. I don't have as much control, and therefore I don't have as much confidence when I play it. So as I play it, you see, I can really grab those and add a vibrato. So there's lots of different ways that you can play this sort of thing. You know, it's a very popular kind of chord, certainly back in the 70s and the 80s and that sort of thing. But just a really great way of being able to play a power chord is by dropping that sixth string, or that root note, I should say, the thickest chord or thickest string of that chord. You drop that off, okay? And you get this really nice tight sound. That sort of thing. Okay, so that's the first thing about power chord creativity, is just thinking about how you can drop that off. Now let's start looking at expansion and contraction, okay? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna head up to, let's just go to E power chord. I'm just thinking of songs off the top of my head here, but let's say I go to the E power chord again. And this time what I'm gonna do is, if I was doing a typical kind of blues thing, what I would do is I would expand by taking my pinky and adding it on 2 frets higher, okay, on whatever string the ring finger is on. So if I was playing 7 and 9, if I wanted to play something bluesy, I would take my pinky and I would add it on 2 frets higher on the same string that the ring finger's on, which means I'd go to the 11th fret. And I could get a kind of sound, right? Right, that kind of thing. Now again, I don't have the tone right now dialed in for that. I just have a generic tone going, but you get the idea, okay? So, to get that bluesy sound, I go 2 frets higher on whatever string my ring finger is on. So if I'm on the 6th string, I go 2 frets higher on the 5th string. And that gives me the kind of blues sound. Well, if I go up 1 more fret from there, 2 frets higher, now I gotta go 3 frets higher. Now I have little fingers, remember, so if I can reach this, you can reach this. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm on the 7th fret of the 6th string. I'm going up 2 frets higher, which means I'm going to the 9th fret on the same string that the ring finger's on. But I'm gonna go up 1 more fret yet. And I get that kind of bluesy sound. Now if I move down to A, you might recognize this. Okay, a little AC/DC, right? Okay, but you get the idea. So that's a great way of being able to produce blues, by doing a bit more creativity with your power chord, is going, again, just remember the rule. If you want to make it sound bluesy by making that shuffle kind of sound, what you can do is add your pinky 2 frets higher on whatever string, when you're playing a power chord, whatever string your ring finger is on. Okay? Yes, that was the jack. That's right. Yep, good stuff. Okay, so anyway, now let's go a little bit darker in style. So now what I'm gonna do is go back to that E power chord. But this time what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add my pinky on again on the same string as my ring finger, but this time I'm only gonna go 1 fret higher. And I get this. Okay? See that? So I'm adding it 1 fret higher, and I'm getting that kind of, it sounds darker. It sounds a bit more Yeevil, right? That kind of thing. So when we think about like some heads are gonna roll, that's it, yep. Yeah, and it does have a Megadeth sound. It's got, that's the thing, is when I was learning how to play guitar, when I was a kid, I didn't know theory, and I didn't really have any lessons. I had a few lessons, and it didn't work out very well. And so I learned how to play by ear. And I would always think about distance, okay? Like when I would play, and I don't want to get off on a tangent because this is an ear training thing, but I would think when I played in whole steps, it sounded more like metal, right? It had that sound. Metal always had this 2-fret sound or whole step sound. So I always just thought like metal for the most part, you know, learning Iron Maiden and all that stuff that I used to learn was all, you know, 1-3-5 or 3-5-7 or 5-7-9 or 2-4-6 or whatever it is. It was always that sort of thing. And then when grunge came in, certainly with you know, like Nirvana, there was a lot of 3-fret movement. That kind of sound. If that kind of makes sense. So that's how I visualized theory, well, the fretboard, music, certainly, you know, before Nirvana, but because I went to college by that time, and I knew about theory and things. But even so, even today, even knowing theory, I still visualize my fretboard in terms of sound more than I do going, oh, this is in the whatever mode, and this is, if that's how my ear works. If I'm listening to the radio and I go, oh, okay, that's what it's doing. I can figure out by visualizing in my head what the song is doing by listening to these things, okay? So when you think about this kind of sound, that's what you're getting, right? Or, you hear that and you can tell what that is. Right? That kind of sound. So that's something else that's a real great benefit of learning how to do this sort of thing, is that you get to hear those and you start identifying with what it is. Even though you don't have the tab or something like that, you could identify that sound, and when you hear it again, you can go, oh yeah, that's what it is. It's just somewhere else. It's not on the 7th fret. It might be on the 5th fret or something like that by moving to the 8th. And that immediately always makes me think of Dokken, but there's a million other things that you can use it for. You see? But it's a great sound. So watch this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep moving that 5th, well, I'm on the 5th string power chord. Sorry about that. So I'm going to keep moving the 4th string down and watch what it sounds like. Remember at the beginning when I went and I dropped my first finger down. Now let's go the other direction. I'm dropping down the 2nd note of the power chord. And I get this. So what I'm doing is going 9, 8, 7, 6. And obviously to get to the 6, I have to shift. Well, if you know the song I'm talking about, it shifts entirely, because I'm sure when Dave was writing this, he's like, oh, well, I got to lift my fingers up anyway. Let's do something else. So you get this really great sound by descending that 3rd finger. Now we're moving that down and getting these sounds. Okay? Let's take that same idea and drop it down 1 string to the 5th, or the 4th string, excuse me, and maybe that's why I was thinking of it, is because of that. I'm gonna be careful so they don't take my video off. So I gotta be careful with playing these for too long. But you get the idea, okay? So so you can drop down the top string or the bottom string. You can strip out the thickest string entirely, right? So there's lots of different ways that you can come up with some really creative riffs by thinking about doing things like this, okay? So let's take that dissension idea again, and let's do this. Instead of, we talked about, let's just start all over here and make sure you've got everything. Okay, so we did a power chord, and we talked about how we could strip away the root note of that power chord, the thickest string of that power chord, and play stuff like that. Well, we can go back to that now. Okay, let's go back to this G power chord. And let's just say I was here on these 2 strings. Okay, well, I could drop down And when I do that, all of a sudden that power chord becomes something completely different. This G power chord right there becomes a D chord when I do that. If I drop that first finger down again, it becomes a D minor chord. And it's okay if that doesn't make sense to you. I'm just showing you how even going back to that, of just using the 2 notes of a power chord, how I could embellish around that. Right? So since I'm on a Judas Priest kick here, if anybody knows this. See, you can get a lot of really great sounds by just exploring like that. That's super cool. So I'm playing 5 and 4, then I'm playing 5 and 3, then I'm playing 5 and 5, which doesn't make any theoretical sense that I would have 3, 4, 5 there, but it sounds great. So these are things I want you to be thinking about a little bit when you're trying to explore different ways of playing power chords, okay? Is not just adding or subtracting, although that is what we're doing, but we can invert things. Like, let's say I went to this E power chord again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to invert this, and I'm going to play an E major chord. So I'm playing 7 and 6, and I'm actually going to move it down and play 7 and 5. So I'm getting the minor sound. So it sounds, you can hear the minor sound as opposed to just playing the power chord. If I play it as a 7 and a 5, now all of a sudden that power chord, if you will, it's not really a power chord, obviously, because now it's got a minor tonality, but in our head, because we're thinking about it as 2 strings, we can still think of it about it as a power chord. Okay? Again, please understand that it's not in theory, but all you're doing is trying to look for different creative ways of being able to move around and make these sounds. So if I play this E minor, the 7 and 5, see how I can move that 5 down 1 fret? And I'm going to stop there so I don't get in trouble, okay? So if that kind of makes sense, okay, that's the kind of stuff that you can do. Now let's expand it just a little more, just give you a couple more here to think about, and then you can do all kinds of things. We can be done with this and you can practice this over the weekend. Okay, this is one that I love to do, is taking the power chord. Again, I'll just go up to E again since we're on this. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play 7 and 9, but I like to put my middle finger on the 9, and then what I'm going to do is take my pinky and place it on the 11th fret of the 3rd string. You get these big sounds like that. So I'm playing 7, 9, and 11. Okay, very modern sounding power chord. Hear that? As opposed to just going, you know, like that, which sounds cool, okay. I can't even remember the name of that, some old 80s song. Anybody, if anybody knows it, let me know. Gosh, I can't remember. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So many good songs, so little time. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to this 7. Now I'm going 5, 7, and 9. You see, and you get this big, fat kind of sound. And of course, with the guitar tone that I've got right now, the notes are really shining through. You really want to, and I'm biting in when I pick. I'm not playing very gently. I'm really trying to kind of bite through so you hear the percussion. You see, that sort of thing. So it all comes down to also the way that you play. When you play a bit more aggressively, you're going to get that more aggressive kind of sound. So be aware of that. You know, I use really light strings, but I have some guitars that have thicker strings on them just so I can dig in a bit more when I play. And then, of course, when I tune the guitar, I always tune my 6th string just a teeny bit flat, because when I strum, I tend to hit that 6th string a little bit hard, and if it's tuned normal, it'll always go sharp just a little bit from the other strings. That's just the way it is for me. So what I do is I tend to tune it just a little flat. Now, you'll notice it if the chord was to ring out for a long period of time and it comes back into balance, you know, it's going to be a little bit off, but it's rock and roll. What do you expect? The guitar is an imperfect instrument in terms of tuning, but see, that way I can get more aggressive when I play, and it'll still be in tune. So that's one thing that I like to do when I'm tuning. I know it's a little bit off from what we were talking about, but hopefully that makes sense. So that adds the 2. That's right. Yep. When I do this thing, oftentimes we'll call it an add 9. We'll call that like a D5 add 9, or a D add 9 no third, right? Because there's no third in this chord. So there's lots of different ways we can write that. But again, I don't want to go too far into the theory side of things. Just getting you to think about exploring. Now, the last thing I want to say about this is, please, 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 please spend time playing music, okay? Don't just spend time like learning things on guitar and learning, you know, ideas and things like that. That's all wonderful, and I want you to do all that. But it's really important for you to learn tunes. Learn how to play songs. The more songs you learn, the more you can, you know, keep your chops up and things like that. And, you know, the more you can just explore the different things that the guitar has to offer. You know, if you whatever, I can't remember how the whole thing goes, but any of those kind of things, the more you learn that kind of stuff, the more you can develop your chops, obviously, but the more you get used to seeing your guitar differently. So think about those things as you play, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. We're going to stop there, and I want you to work on these sorts of things. If you do want to check out the Power Chord Creativity course, just head over to guitarzoom.com, and you can check it out there. But most importantly, what I want you to do is have fun playing guitar, learning stuff that you like, and of course, staying motivated, and avoid the trolls. They're everywhere, and they shouldn't bother you at all. Just enjoy what you're doing. So, all right, cool. Anyway, take care, everybody, and I will